I wrote the book because I wanted particularly young people, people of all ages, but particularly young people, to understand the dimensions of the nuclear weapons problem. That far from the problem going away, there were 22,000 nuclear weapons located in 111 sites in 14 countries of the world. More than half the population of the world lives in a nuclear weapons country. This is not good. 2 decades after the end of the Cold War, and we still, maintaining and modernizing nuclear weapons. So I wrote the book to advance the whole idea of the campaign that is underway now for a nuclear weapons convention. And there's an international campaign underway. It operates in several countries. More people need to know and understand the dimensions of the problem, and not just in a negative way, but in a positive way. Namely, we can do something about it. We can build this global legal ban. And already there's a model nuclear weapons convention. It's been tabled as a United Nations document for at least 10 years. And now it's beginning to be taken seriously. And we have the moment that has been brought to us by Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, who wants to have negotiations started. And we have President Obama in the United States, who has opened a discourse, opened a dialogue by himself pointing to a nuclear weapons-free world, even as he says that he doesn't expect to see it in his lifetime. Well, he might. Who knows? What I'm trying to say in the book is that even with leaders such as Ban Ki-moon and Obama who would like to move forward, they're constrained by the apparatus all around them, the bureaucracies and so on. We need to break through the military-industrial complex. We need to have an assertion of political will. We need to have people in Canada and other countries stand up and proclaim that it is absolutely absurd for the world to proceed in the 21st century in such a dangerous state. It's the time for building a global legal ban on all nuclear weapons has come. And the way in which organizations and countries have come in behind this is quite remarkable. 2/3 of all the states in the world have already voted at the United Nations for a nuclear weapons convention. The European Parliament has adopted a resolution in favor of it. Mayors for Peace, which has 4,700 mayors all around the world, including many in Canada, are campaigning for it. So this is a movement that is growing. And when the movement matures, more people in the media start to take notice of it, then I think that we're going to have some action, so that while the fruition of this movement may not occur in my lifetime, because I'm going to be 82, I think that President Obama, who's 48 years old, may well live to see the end of nuclear weapons. If nuclear weapons are not abolished, they will be maintained, and they will spread in the world. And as they spread and more nations acquire them, the chance of the use of a nuclear weapon goes up exponentially. And so the alternative is simply not acceptable. They must be abolished in a legal, phased manner, and that's what a nuclear weapons convention would do. So I think that this is a big mountain we have to climb, but so too was the movement to end slavery. And when the Wilberforce and the other proponents of ending slavery were getting going, the establishment of their times just brushed them off and sent them to the margins of social discourse. But gradually, as more people began to understand the evil that slavery constituted, they were able to make some inroads in the political process, and then society started to build up, and there was a momentum. And when that social movement to end slavery reached a peak, then the political order took notice and passed the anti-slavery laws. And so I think that just as slavery was abolished, just as apartheid was abolished, and just as colonialism was abolished, when the social movement in all those areas matured, so too will nuclear weapons abolition go forward? Nuclear power is a mixed blessing at its best. The Non-Proliferation Treaty specifically permits nuclear power, and it even says that states have an inalienable right to acquire it. That being said, it's also dangerous, because if anything goes wrong, as we've seen now in Chernobyl, at 3 Mile Island, and now in Japan, the risks to the surrounding population are great and severe. So I think that the rules for the maintenance of nuclear materials, the safety considerations, all that needs to be strengthened. But much more than that, we ought to phase down from nuclear power into alternate energy. And the wind and the solar power now is proven itself, its capacity. It needs, its economic base needs to be improved, and that will come with more investment into it. But it's quite remarkable the gains that alternate energy have already made. And nuclear energy is too dangerous, it's too expensive. And I think that we are getting a lesson from Japan to slow down the development of nuclear power. Well, you see, both Iran and Pakistan are examples of why we have to put a lid on nuclear weapons as a whole. In the case of Iran, they are entitled to enrich uranium under the terms of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. But it is the enrichment of uranium that brings a country to the capacity to build a nuclear weapon. And thus, Iran threatens to enter the nuclear weapons club. Well, they may or they may not. I think it's terribly important to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, because if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, you can be sure that the other countries in the Middle East will also acquire nuclear weapons. And that is not a formula for security. But Iran takes a position that if they're going to be deterred from having a nuclear weapon, that other states that have nuclear weapons should desist or enter negotiations for the abolition of nuclear weapons. And so Iran is a perfect case in point of the two-class nuclear world. Some states have nuclear weapons, other states are prohibited from having them. That's not a sustainable formula for the world. In the case of Pakistan, the security systems of nuclear weapons are called into question. How secure are the nuclear weapons that Pakistan possesses? If the military regimes undergo some sort of upheaval, how can we be sure that the keys for the nuclear weapons are going to be kept in a safe place, if I can put it that way? And so Pakistan is anything but a stable society today. And that's a perfect example of why we have to put the lid on nuclear weapons and not let them get into other societies that will be even less stable. We have a very special moment here in Canada now with the election of a majority government that can plan in a consistent manner. And Canada signed a statement in Berlin at the end of April calling for reinvigorated work for nuclear disarmament that would fit the work of Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, who wants to have negotiations started for a nuclear weapons convention, which would be a global legal ban on all nuclear weapons. There's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done to build up for such a negotiating forum. And Canada, having in the previous parliament passed a motion unanimously calling for Canada to take a major diplomatic internationally and support the Secretary General's 5-point proposal for nuclear disarmament, which included a nuclear weapons convention. You put all this together, and it's a moment for Canada to stand up. And I think that the Middle Powers Initiative would like to hold a meeting in Canada, and with the support of the Foreign Affairs Department, we might be able to do something that would be a distinctive Canadian contribution forward. Well, they have to recognize that Canada has a place in the world that needs to be recovered. you know, we lost the vote for a permanent seat, for a seat on the Security Council, and that was a blow that we need to come back from that, and we do that by standing up in the international security agenda, and by that I mean the pillars of security as identified by the United Nations, which are development issues, sustainable development, environmental issues, human rights issues, and nuclear disarmament. So that's the agenda for the 21st century, and I think that Canada is now able to play a strong role. There's a lot of support across Canada and in the previous Parliament, and I have no reason to think that the new Parliament will not be just as supportive, if not more so, for Canada to play a stronger role internationally. I think that the time has come for us to do that.